Well, welcome everyone. My name is Glen Marino. I'll be your presenter today. And we have some realtors and people that want to know how to become a homeowner, how we've made it easier for them to become homeowners. And I want you to feel free, if you have a question, to unmute yourself. I want you to relax, enjoy, learn, and more importantly, I want you to take action. I want you to feel confident about taking some action and taking advantage of some of the resources that we're going to talk about today. A little bit about me before we get started. I'm the business development manager for the Marino team here in Naperville, Illinois for First Centennial Mortgage. I've been a loan originator and I'm a certified public accountant, so I do know the numbers. I specialize in getting people into home ownership using down payment assistance. I use education to help people understand how they become homeowners and how they can own a part of the American dream. It gives me great pleasure to see people's eyes open up and see them all of a sudden know, gosh, I really can become a homeowner. I married my college sweetheart some 27 years ago, and we have 3 beautiful daughters, 2 of which have already used this down payment assistance program and have bought their homes, and they're very happy owning a piece of the American dream. The American dream. Home ownership is still the American dream, and buying a home can be an exciting, but can be an intimidating process if one doesn't understand, what steps are necessary to get to that end point. I believe in the American dream, and I feel most people still do, but they're unsure as to whether it's achievable anymore. Well, this Homebuyer workshop will present you with the information that will help to prepare you to purchase a home. Why have this workshop? Well, to me, there's a great need or a want to become a homeowner. There's too much misinformation out there. So many people I've talked to are thinking about buying a home. Well, I need 20% down payment. I don't have 20% saved up. Or I need to have a 780 credit score. My credit score is not that high. Again, too much misinformation out there. We need to improve the knowledge of the home buying process. Demystify it, make it easy for them to understand, and help them with their home ownership concerns. Why have this workshop? Well, we want to help to set aside the individual's lack of confidence. You would be surprised at how many people think they're years away from owning a home. If they have the money for the first month's rent and a security deposit, they have the ability to be purchasing a home at this point. 50% of the renters think they can't afford the down payment. However, they have the financial means to maintain a mortgage payment. When we look at later on in this presentation, you're going to see that the monthly mortgage payment is about what people are paying in rent. They can maintain the monthly payment. They just don't think they can afford the down payment. This workshop is going to educate individuals on the financial assistance, the down payment assistance program that's available to them for a home purchase. It's going to also enhance the quality of their life. Homeownership is a great desire, and when they do that, it just does nothing more than enhances the quality of their life. And it helps individuals with wealth building and equity appreciation. Who is this workshop good for? Well, renters for one, people that continue to give their first month's rent and security deposit. Existing homeowners. This is not a first-time homebuyer program only. I've got people in downtown Chicago as single people. They got their studio, they got their 1-bedroom condo, they purchased it, it was fun for them, and then they got married, and then they had 1 child, and then they had a 2nd child, and all of a sudden that 1-bedroom condo is not big enough for all the toys. And so again, existing homeowners, if they're not getting enough equity out, enough cash out when they sell that condo, and they're looking to move to the suburbs and get the bigger house, this is a great program for them. It's good for sons, daughters, millennials. It's good for family members that dream of home ownership. It's good for your friends. I know that my daughter, who now owns that condo in the Lincoln Park area in Chicago, many of her friends are going, you owned a condo, how did you do that? When she talked to them about the down payment assistance program. And so all of a sudden now her friends are becoming our friends as we continue to educate them and help them get ready to become homeowners. So it's for anyone who thinks they can't buy a home because they did not save enough money. What are some of the other myths that we have to dispel? Well, we got 45% of them think a very good credit score is what they need in order to get a mortgage loan today. They think that a good credit score is 780 or better. 35% of them think they need 20% as a down payment. Well, the fact is the average down payment is just over 7%. The fact is that 64% of the millennials have not put down 20%, In fact, 36% of the millennials have not even put 5% down, which means probably they're dealing with the FHA loan, which is a minimum of 3.5% down. 31% don't think they can even qualify for a mortgage loan. So how do we overcome these myths? How do we overcome these issues? Well, we will be your advisors. That is the realtor and the lenders. We are experts at what we do. Your realtor will work with you to find you your perfect home. We will work to find you the best down payment assistance program that's available to you. We'll hold your hand and guide you every step of the way. And did we say we, the realtor and Tony Marino of First Centennial, that we're really friendly people? What are some of the advantages of homeownership? Well, it's a place to call your own. It's also knowing that, hey, the landlord can't ask us to move, or that our rent is going to be going up another $100, $200 a month, which gets into it's going to stabilize your housing costs. With today's low interest rates, and I mean that they're at 3% or less, that you can lock that in for 30 years, at least the principal and interest portion of your payment is going to remain relatively low for many, many years to come. Another advantage of homeownership is you build equity. Every month that you're paying down a mortgage, you're dropping that principal down. You're knocking it down. You're owing less on the house. And every year that goes by, theoretically, in neighborhoods, real estate is appreciating. So the difference between the current fair market value of the house and what you owe on the house becomes equity, and that number continues to build year after year. You're also going to get tax deductions on the interest that you pay on that mortgage loan and the real estate taxes that you pay on that home. Then down the road, you can borrow against the equity you build up in your home. Remember we said you're building up equity every year. The house is appreciating, the mortgage balance, the loan is going down. Well, maybe so, down the road when you have some equity, you might want to go get a home equity line of credit. Maybe you want to put that deck on. Maybe you want to finish that basement. Maybe you want to remodel the kitchen. As you build equity, you're building a source from which you can now borrow funds to improve that real estate. Or you can convert that equity into cash later on when you retire by looking at what's called a reverse mortgage. And lastly, another advantage of homeownership is homeowners have about 45 times greater net worth than renters. It means that they're worth more. They've got more assets. They've got more resources. Some more advantages of homeownership: you can stop paying rent to a landlord. Landlord is continuing to love those renters. They're paying his mortgage every month. How about, an advantage? Let's move out of mom and dad's house. We graduated from high school, we graduated from college. It's now time for us to be on our own. Let's gain our own independence. We already talked about paying less in income taxes because of the deduction for interest and real estate taxes. And you're going to increase one's wealth by acquiring an appreciating asset. That $200,000 home you purchase today could be worth $250,000, $300,000 years down the road. Buying a home is a huge step, but buying a home doesn't have to be confusing nor challenging. Our program, the program that the realtors and the lenders have for you, is to give you three components. First, home buyer and home ownership education. Secondly, some one-on-one counseling. And lastly, financial assistance. Let's talk about one-on-one counseling. It's going to be a personalized approach for those who need more detailed information to help overcome barriers to home ownership. No two people are alike. One person might have an abundance of student loans. Another person might have declared Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy and want to know, when am I going to be eligible to buy again? With the one-on-one counseling, we want to improve an individual's confidence in their ability to purchase a home. Again, not knowing also creates fear, creates uncertainty. But if you have the ability to reach out to qualified professionals like your realtor and the loan officer, it's only going to improve your confidence that you can do this. We're going to address credit issues and mortgage qualification. If you don't qualify today, we're going to give you a roadmap. We're going to tell you, this is the credit card. You need to bring it down from $900 to $400. You need to pay off this collection. We're going to work with you on rescoring your credit to get you to where you need to be. We're going to give you advice and recommendations specific to your individual situation. And again, that advice is going to be provided by a licensed loan officer and a wonderful realtor. Let's talk about financial assistance. Financial assistance helps an individual overcome a financial barrier to home ownership. My best example I can give you is typically when I talk to a renter, they are prepared. They have in the bank their first month's rent and security deposit. Why is that? Because they can either voluntarily move or involuntarily move. Involuntarily means that as the lease is coming due, the landlord calls them and says, hey, Glenn, we're not renewing your lease. You've been a noisy tenant. We've had complaints about you. You've been past due on your rents a couple times this year. I'm not going to renew the lease with you. Well, involuntarily, you're moving. You better have your first month's rent and security deposit in the bank. And then the other way is voluntarily. You might be saying, okay, when we moved here, we had no children. We now have 2 children. They're now going to school, or the neighborhood became unsafe. And so we want to voluntarily move to a better location. So what we're going to do is we're going to help you. That you might have in the bank your first month's rent and security deposit. We're going to show you that's enough for what we're going to do, for what you need in order to become a home owner. So financial assistance is typically in the form of down payment assistance. An example could be that $200,000 home, you're going to use an FHA loan. 3.5% is the minimum down payment. 3.5% of $200,000 is $7,000. And then financial assistance can come in the form of helping you pay closing costs, which are typically about $5,000. Well, 5 and 7 is $12,000. And if I ask the typical renter, you have that $12,000 in the bank, and they'll typically go, Glenn, what are you, crazy? I just told you. I have the first month's rent and security deposit. I'm ready to move. I got $3,000. I don't have $12,000. But if we get you financial assistance of up to, say, $10,000, $10,000 from that $12,000 means you only have to come up with $2,000. That financial assistance can be the difference between becoming a homeowner and not being a homeowner. So your team, the realtor and the loan officer, can provide you with access to the IDA program, standing for the Illinois Housing Development Authority program. And the Access program has 3 different programs: $6,000, $7,500, or $10,000. $6,000 grant, $7,500 zero interest loan, and $10,000 zero interest loan. And we're going to talk more about this a little bit later on. So let's go into the home buying process. Let's make sure that people understand what is it, how do I start out and where do I end? And when you start out, you need to get pre-approved. Your realtor cannot take you out looking at a home. They're excited for you. They want to take you out, but they want to make sure that you're not wasting your time and that you're not wasting their time. They want you to get pre-approved for a home loan for free. You're going to download what's called FCMexpress. Go to your app store, go to your Play Store, download it. And once it's downloaded, it's going to ask you, would you like to start an application? And you say, yep, I want to start immediately. The lender helps you determine how much you can afford. That's going to be based on your income, based on your credit score. The lender can help improve your credit score if necessary. We can do what's called credit rescoring. You're going to see here that we need at least a 640 credit score for this down payment assistance. If you have a 610 score, we can give you advice. We can help you understand what it takes. Which Visa card do you need to pay down and by how much? Which collection do you need to pay down and by how much in order to get that credit score improved? So we will make suggestions for you. If you want or you need additional assistance, we'll give you one-on-one counseling from both the lender and the realtor, depending upon the nature of the counseling. The home buying process. After you're pre-approved, we are going to issue a letter. The letter is going to say that you've been pre-approved for a purchase price of X amount of dollars. A copy will go to your realtor. A copy is going to go to you. You're going to meet with that realtor. That realtor is schooled in helping you understand, your price. Okay, your pre-approval letter talks about price. They're going to show you different homes, different style of homes within that price range. They're going to talk to you about what neighborhood do you want to live in. How close does that neighborhood need to be to transportation routes, be it the expressway, be it the trains? What size home do you need? Is it a 2, 3, 4 bedroom? How many bathrooms do you need? What's your lifestyle? Do we need an open floor plan? Do you like to entertain? Do you need 1 floor? Do you need 2 stories? These are all great things, great discussion points with your realtor. Then once you've decided on the type of home, you're going to go out and look at homes and you're going to make an offer. That realtor is going to attach that pre-approval letter to your offer, letting the seller know you are qualified. You sellers should negotiate with this buyer because they're qualified to buy this home. Once you guys negotiate and you come up with your terms, You'll end up with a purchase contract. You'll end up giving earnest money, and then you'll be making sure that you have all the necessary down payment funds assembled for that closing. Then after you have that purchase contract, you're going to be sending that purchase contract to an attorney. Your realtor, your loan officer can give you some recommendations of attorneys that you might like to use for your purchase. Your attorney will look over the contract. Typically, you've got 5 business days for them to look over that contract. You're going to do your due diligence while your attorney is looking over the contract. You're going to do a home inspection. You're going to do a radon inspection. You're going to make sure that it's a healthy house. Cosmetics are one thing. Oh, I want to change the carpeting. It looks like it's worn and torn. Okay, that's cosmetic. Or I want to put paint on the walls. Okay, great. That's cosmetic. But if you've got mold in the basement, if you've got a possible crack in a foundation, if you've got radon, these are all health problems that you do not want to move into that house until they're fixed. So you're going to do a home inspection. You're going to do a radon inspection. Then you're going to send the executed contract. Because again, if during the inspection you find you have problems and that you say, no way, no how am I buying this house, there's no sense in going any further. You have all the legal rights then to just crush the contract and it becomes null and void and your earnest money is returned. However, once you find that it is a good, healthy home, you're going to send the executed contract and your loan docs to your lender. It's going to go through our processing department where we're going to verify your employment. We're going to verify your income. We're going to order an appraisal. After it's been processed and audited and verified, we're going to send it to the underwriter. They approve your loan, they decline your loan, or they suspend your loan for more information. Once you have conditional approval, that means that it's gone through underwriting and they might want some updated documents like updated pay stubs, updated bank statements. Then you're going to get it clear to close and you're going to go to closing at a title company with the funds that are needed for your closing. At the closing, it'll take place either at a title company or at an attorney's office. You're going to sign the documents that are going to make the home yours. And the biggest one that you're looking for is the deed. The deed will say your name on it, that you have the deed, you're the owner of this property. The seller will receive their check, which is usually the money that you borrowed from the lender, plus your own funds. And the buyer will receive keys. Have fun, move in, congratulations. So why don't most people buy a home? Well, not enough money has been saved. Go back to the renter's mentality. I got the first month's rent and security deposit. I got $1,500 and I got $3,000. I don't have $12,000. Just show me a rental unit. Or their credit's not good enough. Okay, they're at 610 or they're at, they're not willing to at least spend the time doing some one-on-one counseling to find out what can be done. What can I do? What are my action steps to improve my credit? Or they just self-defeat themselves. I just don't think I can buy. Therefore, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't think you can buy, you can't buy. So if given the chance, would you like to stop renting? Would you like to move but don't have a lot of equity in your current home or your condo in downtown Chicago to give you enough money for that down payment on the next home? If given the chance, would you like to keep your assets invested? Stock market's doing really well. Maybe you don't feel like selling off some of your assets that are doing well and not liquidate them for a down payment or for your closing costs. If given the chance, would you like to buy a home for as little as 1% of the purchase price? Well, we've got some exciting loan programs that can do just that for you. We're not going to go through all of these, but we're going to highlight a couple of them. One is this 95% loan here. Oops, let's go back. This 95% conforming loan. It's typically 5% down. You borrow 95%. And it goes down to a credit score of about 620. The other one is this 96.5% FHA standard loan, which means you're putting 3.5% down, and it goes down to scores as low as 580. But the good news, the exciting news for me is these last 3 programs. It's the $6,000 IDA Access Forgivable Grant, where I don't need 5%, I don't need 3.5%, I only need 1% of the purchase price as my own funds. And we're going to see very shortly what is a forgivable grant all about. The $7,500 IDA Access zero interest loan with deferred payments for 30 years. No payments for 30 years? Now you got my attention. And you only need 1%, not 5%, not 3.5%. 1% of the purchase price has to be your own funds. And lastly, there's $10,000 in IDA access funds. That's a zero interest loan with monthly principal only payments of $83.33. And again, you only need 1% of the purchase price of your own funds. So let's take a look at this in a little finer detail. The $6,000 program, it's in addition to the let's use an FHA loan as an example. You need to come up with 3.5% down. If that was on a $200,000 purchase, that's $7,000. So people can say, I don't have those funds. Well, let's see which one of these we need to help us with. These are all going to be second lien or second mortgage positions on your property. You're going to get a 96.5% loan. That'll be a first mortgage. The $6,000 is a 10-year forgivable grant. A grant is money is given. 10 years is 10 times, there's 12 payments, 12 months in a year. 10 times 12 is 120 months. If you stay in the house for 120 months, you owe nothing back to the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So if you only stay in the house, say, for 6 years, instead of the whole 10 years, that means $4,000 was forgiven, and the other $2,000 will be paid off at your closing because you're leaving the house. You're not staying. You had a few more children. The house is too small. You're going to go buy a bigger home. So you're selling this house. Your attorney's going to go out and ask, what's the balance on the first mortgage loan? And then there's going to be a lien from IDA on the title, and your attorney's going to say, and what is the balance owing to IDA on the $6,000 grant? And they'll say $2,000. And you'll pay that off at the closing, provided that you've only stayed in that house 6 years instead of all 10 years. All 10 years, you owe nothing back. Let's go to the second one, the $7,500 program. What a great, crazy, great program. It's $7,500. It's a zero interest loan. Okay, so I'm going to give you $7,500. There's no interest on the money. Go use it for your down payment. Go use it for your closing costs. And oh, by the way, there's no payments for 30 years. What'd you say? No payments for 30 years? What a great program. Or until you sell the house. So if you stay in the house for 10 years, for 20 years, and then you sell, well, then you owe the $7,500 back with no interest. But what a great program, isn't it? That you're being given $7,500 with no interest and no payments until you sell the house. Where was that program when I was buying a house? Last but not least, the $10,000 program. Great, great program, just like the $7,500, zero interest loan, except that there is principal payments owed over a 10-year period. So once again, 10 years times 12 months, that's 120 payments. If you took 120 and divided it into $10,000, that's $83.33 a month. That's what you will be billed from the lender. I always ask my clients, I go, if you were to take your significant other and you took them out for a nice dinner this weekend, glass of wine, nice meal, what would it cost you? You say, Glenn, depending upon the restaurant, $60, $80, $100. I go, okay, if you gave up just one of those meals a month, gave up that $60, $80, $100, you then have $83.33. And give up that one meal and I'll give you $10,000 for your down payment and your closing costs. Their answer back is, when can we get started? That's an easy one. I want to become a homeowner. I want to be a part of the American dream. So they're exciting loan programs. It's new, it's $6,000, it's $7,500, it's $10,000 in down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers and existing homeowners. It is not just for first-time homebuyers. It's amazing. Your journey toward homeownership got easier. You're going to get $6,000 forgivable, $7,500 deferred for up to 30 years, $10,000 zero interest, repayable at $83.33 a month. If you could get $10,000 today to use for down payment and closing costs, would you buy today? And amazingly, most people say absolutely. Continue the discussion. I'm all ears. So let's look at some of the eligibility requirements that you need to get to that $6,000, $7,500, or $10,000. It's available for first-time and non-first-time home buyers. You must be purchasing a 1 or a 2-unit building. In other words, you can't use it for 3 and 4 unit buildings. And this is real exciting and something I don't want you to miss. I have gotten a lot of people into 2-unit buildings where their mortgage payment is $1,500 and their tenant's giving them $900 in in rent for the second unit. Well, 1,500 minus 9, that's 600. So their mortgage payment is only $600 a month. And they only had to come up with 1% of the purchase price as their out of pocket. So if that was a $200,000 purchase price on that 2-unit, they had to come up with $2,000, and we're going to see an example of this in a little bit. The borrower must occupy it as their primary residence. So in other words, you can't buy a rental property. This is not for investment properties. And no non-occupant co-borrowers are allowed. What does that mean? That means that mom and dad can't be co-signers. Mom and dad aren't going to live. They're non-occupants. They're not going to occupy the property. But if you're going to use the down payment assistance program, we're going to focus just on you. We cannot use mom and dad, brother, sister, somebody that's not going to live in the property. And last but not least, it's going to be a 30-year fixed rate. We're going to find out which program is best for you. If you're a veteran, we're going to look at a VA loan. If you're tight on debt ratios, we're going to use an FHA. If you're tight on down payment, it can only come up with that 3.5%. But we're going to show you how you're not really going to come up with that whole amount. We're going to go FHA. We'll go conventional, and we can also go USDA. Some other qualifications. There's income and property limit qualifications. I'll show you the chart later on, but we can talk about the income. The income, you must make less than $109,200 in Cook County and the surrounding collar counties. I don't know about you guys, but I know a lot of people that make less than $109,200. And the property limitation on a 1-unit is $326,000. So as long as you're buying something for under $326,000 and you make less than $109,200, this is for you. Let's get you $10,000 so that you can buy a home for as little as 1%. The minimum credit score for FHA with 3.5% down, with a USDA or a VA where you're getting 100% financing, is only a 640 credit score. For a conventional loan, it's also a 640 credit score. The debt to income ratio, the debts, your total monthly debts, and we're going to go through that in a little bit, to income is 45%. So in other words, 45% of your gross monthly income you cannot exceed your housing payment plus your credit card plus your student loans plus your minimum payments on credit cards as a percent of your gross monthly income cannot be more than 45%. The borrower must contribute 1% of the purchase price or $1,000, whichever is greater, and there's home ownership counseling that's required that you do online. The great thing about the IDA program, there is only one interest rate being offered each day for IDA. So this is not a program that you got to go out and shop for. I wonder if, Bank B or Mortgage Banker C or somebody else has a lower rate. Every day, IDA sends out to all the IDA certified lenders, which we are one, and they tell us what the rate is that is going to be offered on the FHA loan, on the conventional loan, should you decide to move forward. But it's great. It's only one interest rate. You don't have to worry about, losing out on getting the best rate. The interest rate is the rate for the borrower's first mortgage loan, for FHA, for conventional, for VA, USDA. I'm going to show you the rate sheet momentarily. The IDA Down Payment Assistance Program is a second lien on the property, with only the $10,000 program requiring any repayment of $83.33, which also means that the $6,000 grant and the $7,500 zero interest loan require no monthly payments while you own that house. So here's the rate sheet for today. And if you notice, this access 10% repayable. If you took out a government, which is an FHA loan, and you put 3.5% down, your rate today is 2.75%. I mean, pretty soon this is going to be free money, but the 2.75, that is great. And it's locked in for 30 years, people. This is a fabulous time to be taking advantage of this. You want to become a homeowner. If you did a conventional loan, it says if you took the $10,000 program, you're going to be at 3.375. So again, here's the chart on your income. It says $109,200 for Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will. If you're in other counties, you're going to be, slightly different, higher, lower income levels. But $109,200, I know lots and lots of people that qualify that make less than that. And then down here, do you see the maximum purchase limit? $326,781. So if you have or are buying a home under 326,000, you have to look at this program. It's going to save you out of pocket quite a bit of money. So let's look at a real example now. We've been talking about it theoretically. So let's look at rent versus buying. Let's look at the 3 buckets of cash needed at closing. So if you had a $200,000 purchase price and you said down payment, yeah, it could go 3% conventional or 3.5% FHA or 5% conventional. We don't know enough about the person, the credit. So we're going to use the 3.5% FHA just for purposes of helping them understand how they can become a homeowner. And we talked about the 3 different IDA programs, 10,000, 7,500, and 6,000. Let's work with the 10,000 first. And the average closing costs on a purchase are $5,000, and we will give greater detail in a loan estimate once they get to that point. But for purposes of helping them understand how they can become homeowners, $5,000. And then there's the IDA origination fee, which is another 1% or $2,000. So those are all of our assumptions. And we said before, if they rent, they're going to have $1,500 as the first month's rent. They're going to have another security deposit of $1,500. They got $3,000, and they understand it. The 8th grader in all of us understands $3,000. That's my out-of-pocket. I'm comfortable with that. But now you go to purchase, and oh boy, this could be intimidating. Let me see if I understand this. And so what we did was we broke it down into buckets. Bucket 1, down payment. Bucket 2, closing costs. Bucket 3, escrows. And so within each bucket, you have to ask yourself, who pays the money that you're asking for in this bucket? So let's break it down. The first bucket, down payment. You said it was 3.5% of $200,000 or $7,000. Well, immediately the customer turns around to the realtor and to Glenn and says, I'm sorry, you weren't listening. I have $3,000 in the bank for my first month's rent and security. I don't have $7,000. Show me a rental unit. And then in the next breath, we say, but who pays? We say, remember that the borrower only has to come up with 1% of the purchase price. So 1% of 200,000 is $2,000. And then we have $10,000. So let's take 5,000 out of the IDA funds, out of the $10,000, use it in bucket number 1. 2 and 5 is 7. We have all the money we need for bucket number 1, put a check mark, we're done. Go to bucket number 2, closing costs. You told me that it was $5,000 in ordinary and customary closing costs and another $2,000 for the IDA, for using their funds. So it's $7,000 altogether. Well, again, the customer is going to say, excuse me, I don't have $7,000. You just asked me for $2,000 of my $3,000 for bucket number 1. I'm down to $1,000. I don't have 7. But once again, you say, but who pays? And once again, you go to your IDA bucket. It had $10,000 in it. You use $5,000 in bucket number 1 for down payments. You still have $5,000 in closing costs, in funds available for closing costs. And then here's where your realtor, the wonderful realtor who's experienced in negotiating purchase contracts, says, you know what? I can get you up to $2,000 for the seller to pay part of your closing costs. So if the realtor negotiates for the client and gets $2,000, 2 and 5 is 7, you've got all the funds that are needed for the closing costs. And how much did the borrower come up with? 0, nothing. And then let's go over here to the last bucket called escrows. And again, escrows are going to be for your homeowner's insurance and for your real estate taxes. And in Cook County and the Collier counties, they're paid, the real estate taxes are paid twice a year, homeowners once a year. So at the closing, you're going to have to come up with funds to put in or to deposit into your escrow account for the lender to pay those funds. The good news is the seller is going to have to give you a real estate tax credit, because in Illinois, we pay our real estate taxes 1 year behind. It's called arrears. And so we're in the year 2020 right now. So that means the tax bill for 2020 does not get paid until the year 2021. So if a seller has lived in the house through October 31st, that means for 10 months they lived in the house in 2020. That means 10 months of real estate taxes are going to be given to you, the buyer, as a credit. The credit always, always, and always is greater than what the lender is going to be asking you to put up into that escrow for the homeowner's insurance and for the real estate taxes. So bucket number 3 is always a big 0 because of the real estate tax credit from the seller. And bucket number 2 is always a 0, with the realtor being your pride and joy, negotiating that the seller is going to give you some money to pay for your closing costs. And bucket number one is 1% of the purchase price. So $2,000 and zero is $2,000. Or you can pay $3,000 and go rent. Which would you prefer? Me thinks you would rather buy a $200,000 home for as little as $2,000. So here's my quiz, short little quiz here. So what if the earnest money, which is the money you give with your purchase contract, what if you gave them 1% of the purchase price with your purchase contract? So you've already given the 1%. How much cash would the buyer have to bring to the closing? The answer is right there on the screen, 0. Wouldn't that be a great discussion with the lender, with the realtor, as you get ready for your closing, and all of a sudden you call up and say, well, my closing's tomorrow, how much money do I need to go to the bank and get a check for? And they tell you, it's all of a big 0. And with a big smile on your face, you say, hey, realtor, you got 10 more cards. I'd love to pass out your cards to 10 of my friends. And hey, lender, give me 10 of your cards, by the way. I'd like to do the same. So now let's give the same example on a $300,000 home. We're going bigger. So remember, we go all the way up to $326,000. So if it was a $300,000 home, same thing, FHA, 3.5% down. The bucket number one, down payment. That 3.5% of $300,000 is $10,500. Who pays it? Well, we know that 1% has to come from the borrower, from the customer. So there's $3,000. So we've got $10,000 in our down payment assistance bucket from IDA. We're going to use $7,500 of it, leaving $2,500 behind. So $7,500, $3,000, that's $10,500. Put a check mark. We've got all the money that we need for down payment, and we're only out of pocket $3,000. Let's go to closing costs. They're $5,000 and $3,000. They're $8,000 in closing costs. Once again, the customer says, hey, I'm out of money. You just took $3,000 from me for bucket number one for the down payment, and that's all I had for security deposit and first month's rent. But who pays that? Well, you still have $2,500 from IDA for down payment that you can use for your closing costs. Okay, and then once again, the rockstar realtor is going to negotiate for you that the seller pays $5,500 of your closing costs. And this is not uncommon. So what I'm trying to say to you is, the realtor that you have, they're skilled at this. They will be able to help you find a property, find a motivated seller that's going to help pay your closing costs. So $5,500 from the seller, $2,500 from IDA, that's $8,000. You got all the money that you need for closing costs, and you came up with a big 0. And last but not least, the escrows are going to be 0 because the seller, once again, is going to give us a real estate tax credit for the number of months they lived in the home, and that's going to be for the real estate taxes, whether it's 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, they're going to give us a real estate tax credit that exceeds any amount of money or funds that the lender wants them to put up at the closing. So 0 for escrows, 0 for the closing costs because the seller and IDA are paying them, and $3,000 for the down payment because IDA's paying the rest. So $3,000 gets you a $300,000 home, or you can give the same $3,000 to the landlord and own nothing. Which would you prefer? Again, me thinks you'd rather own a nice, beautiful single-family home. So now, what is your housing payment on that $200,000 home? Say, Glenn, it sounds great. I have to come up with 1%, but what's my monthly payment? So if you look at the monthly payment, the principal and interest is going to be about $828. Remember the down payment assistance? We said it's $83.33 a month if you took the $10,000. So put in the $83. The real estate taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the private mortgage insurance. Your grand total that the lender is going to bill you is $1,455. Well, if my rent was $1,500, I'm more than happy to pay $1,455, which is less than my rent. This assumes a 3% interest rate. And didn't I just tell you that if you were working today with us and with your realtor, your rate would be locked in at 2.75%. So this number would be even lower. But this assumes a 3% interest rate on that FHA 30-year fixed rate. And what if this was a 2-flat? What if you were buying a 2-unit for that $200,000 and now the lender bills you $1,455, but what did you collect from your tenant? Oh, you $900, did you say? Oh, so now $900 from $1,455. Your payment Your out of pocket to live in that appreciating asset is $555. I'm all in favor of that. Sounds like a great deal to me. So now let's look at a 2-unit just to give you an idea. Here's a 2-unit. Someone was buying, this is an actual example from one of my realtors. They bought, their client was buying a $189,900 2-unit. Well, bucket number one, 3.5% down was $6,646. Okay, 1% of the purchase price, $1,899, had to come from the customer, and the rest came from their $10,000 IDA bucket. Second bucket, closing cost was $5,000. Well, they had $10,000. They used just a little bit less than $5,000 in bucket number one, so they still had $5,000 left over in that IDA down payment assistance program. So they used $5,000 for their closing costs, so they came up with nothing. And last but not least, the escrows were nothing because of the real estate tax credit from the seller. So 0 for escrows, 0 for closing costs, $1,899. They just bought a 2-unit for $1,899. And then down here, do you see with a 3% rate, the principal and interest on that was $786. Property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the private mortgage insurance, they had a total payment of $1,417. When you come over here, that $1,417 was offset by their second unit, the rent that they were getting from the tenant of $825. They were living in the 2-unit building for $592. They were the owners. They were getting all the appreciation every year. They were getting all the tax benefits. Great program. Remember, the IDA program works for 1- and 2-unit buildings. So the 3 buckets of cash, let's summarize them. Bucket number one, down payment. Who pays? Always ask who pays. You can, or you and IDA can. And it's 3% if you have a high credit score and a conventional, 5% with a lower credit score to 620. You have to put 5% down. 3.5% if you want to go FHA, and they'll do any credit score down to 580. But you're going to see, remember, we need a 640 if we're going to do the down payment assistance program. But we can go as low as 580. And lastly, down payment could be as low as 1% because that's your share if you use the IDA down payment assistance program from $10,000 all the way down to $6,000. And bucket number two, the closing costs. They're approximately $5,000. There's an additional 1% fee if you go with the IDA down payment assistance program. And who pays that? Well, you can pay if you got the funds. IDA can pay, or your realtor can negotiate to have the seller pay. The seller can agree outright, or we're going to see a program which I call where you're going to ask the seller if you can pay $5,000 more for their home, provided the seller pays $5,000 of your closing costs. And lastly, another entity that can pay your closing costs is your lender, provided, by giving you a higher interest rate than that 2.75 on all non-IDA loans. In other words, there is no higher rate on IDA loans. Remember I said there's one interest rate. Even if you tried to shop it, everybody has the same rate, that 2.75. Well, if it's a non-IDA, we have a ladder of interest rates. We can increase your interest rate, and we can then give you a lender credit that would then help you pay your closing costs. So again, how much of your own funds are being used for closing costs? Hopefully little to none. Hopefully you're using the IDA program, and hopefully you're using the realtor to help negotiate with the seller. So here's what I call the seller closing cost assistance program. In order to get closing cost assistance, in order to get the seller to pay $2,500, in order to get the seller to pay $5,000, if they're not outright agreeing up front, then what you're going to do is you're going to first set the table of expectation. They might have listed their home for $210,000. You and your realtor might have offered $195,000. Negotiating back and forth, both parties, buyer and seller, then say $200,000 is the number. Everybody agrees. So now your realtor, the realtor representing you, the buyer, is going to start inking the contract to make an offer to the seller. So now what we do, the price has been agreed upon between a willing buyer and a willing seller. But now what you're going to do is you're going to want to offer them more than what you've agreed upon. So you want to make sure that the seller is motivated to do this. So you're going to ask the realtor to find homes, possibly with motivated sellers. And those are people that have had a home at least with one price reduction, or they've had many days on the market. A motivated seller will sell for less, or will give up some concessions like paying for your closing costs. A motivated seller allows you to gross up the purchase price and will participate in your closing cost assistance. Grossing up means going from $200,000 to $205,000. Means that your realtor is going to call them up and say, hey, you know my client, that Glen Marino, he was going to pay you $200,000, but he doesn't want to pay that now. And the other person on the other end, the seller's realtor, says, oh my God, we just got done going through these negotiations. Now what's up? You say, my client wants to pay more. The person on the other end looks puzzled and goes, wants to pay more than the 200? Yeah, they want to pay $205,000, provided that you, the seller, will pay $5,000 of my client's closing costs. So let's see, if we offer the seller a higher adjusted purchase price by the amount of the closing costs, we're most likely going to get the seller to agree. Because if the table of expectation was $200,000 and you now offer him $205,000, provided the seller pays $5,000 of the buyer's closing costs, seller's going to say, hey, I was selling at 200, so 205,000 minus 5, I'm still back to where I'm getting the table of expectation. I'm getting what I expected. And all the realtor has to do is to check that the home will appraise for the increased purchase price from 200 to 205. So again, if the motivated seller had some price reductions by you grossing it back up, if the realtor says, I see other homes that are selling, similar styles, similar homes, similar square footage for the 205, you can be rest assured that this strategy then could work. What's people's reaction to this strategy? Well, the seller's very happy because they're still receiving their table of expectation price. 205 minus 5 is 200,000, seller's happy. The realtors are very happy because they're getting paid more commission on a higher price, 205,000 instead of 200,000. What's the buyer's reaction? Well, the buyer's very happy. How much of his own money did he use for the closing costs? None. He just got $5,000 from the seller that he didn't have to come up with, or she didn't have to come up with, for closing costs. So again, the last bucket, those escrows, and asking who pays, in that bucket, you're always going to pay prepaid interest from the date of your closing to the end of the month. So if you close on October 31st, you're using the lender's money for October 31st to October 31st, one day. So most purchases take place near or at the end of the month. So you might be paying $50, in prepaid interest. In your escrow bucket that we talked about, you're going to be responsible for 2 months of homeowner's insurance. So again, that might be all of $40. And then your real estate taxes could be anywhere from 2 to 8 months worth of real estate taxes. Again, if it's $300 a month, that's times 8. That's going to be $2,400. I'm sorry, 300 times 8 is going to be that $2,400. So it looks like you're going to be coming up with quite a bit of funds. However, the seller is going to give you a credit for the time that the seller has lived in the home. So again, if they lived in the home for 10 months and it's $300 a month in real estate taxes, 10 times 3, that's $3,000 that you're going to receive in a real estate tax credit. The credit always exceeds what you have to fill up in this bucket. So it's the only time it's not a zero bucket is when there's new construction, and we can talk about that at a later date. So how much of your own funds are you really using? Bucket number 1, 1% of the purchase price. Bucket 2, 0. Bucket number 3, 0 with the seller credit for the real estate taxes. So now that you know, and I guess my question is, what are you waiting for? You reviewed how little cash is needed. It's now time for us to look at, do you meet the other 3 C's of lending? The first C is credit. Do you have the minimum credit score of 580, which then you cannot use the down payment assistance, or do you have at least a 640 for down payment assistance? So again, if you have 640 or better, put a check mark, you're there. If you're not quite there, we can work with you on credit rescore. The second C is cash flow or your gross monthly income. You must, the maximum debt to income ratio, maximum monthly debts, your housing payment that we showed you, what's in your monthly housing, plus your minimum payments on credit cards, plus your student loans, plus any other monthly debts, as a percent of your gross monthly income cannot exceed 45% if you're using down payment assistance, 50% if it's a conventional loan, and 55% if it's an FHA standard. The last C is collateral, and that's once you go to contract. we will send an appraiser out to make sure that you meet that last C, that the property is worth what you've negotiated to pay for it. So let's talk a little bit about credit. Credit is obtained from any one of the three national repositories. It's Experian, it's TransUnion, it's Equifax. Lenders take the middle score of the three. Here in the Midwest, typically TransUnion is the middle score. It's going to be anywhere from 0 to 850, and you need at least, as I mentioned, a 580 without down payment assistance, and then you need a 640 or better for down payment assistance. And we can help you with either credit rescore or refer you over to credit repair. Credit rescore is we're going to give you an action plan. We're going to tell you which credit cards to pay down, which collection items to pay off, and that will boost your score by so many points. Well, you take that action, you come back to us with the pieces of paper showing that you took that action, we send it into the credit agency, we get you a new score, and if it's above 640, we're ready to help make you a homeowner and achieve that dream of home ownership. Now that you have the credit score, let's look at cash flow. Remember we said add your housing payment to your minimum payments on credit cards, car loans, student loans, and other debts. This is what's known as your monthly debts. Then you're going to calculate your monthly gross income. It is not your net take-home pay. It is not after Fed, FICA, and state withholding. We qualify you on gross income. So keep your monthly debts, which is all those monthly payments up above, to monthly gross income under 45% for down payment, 50% for conventional, 55% for FHA. So again, then what does my housing payment consist of? And we saw that in previous slides, but it's your principal and interest, it's your homeowner's insurance, it's your real estate taxes, your private mortgage insurance, it's your flood insurance, and it's your homeowners or condo association dues if you're buying a condo or a townhouse. Now, let me give you a good piece of advice here. Go to your app store and download FCMexpress. After you've downloaded, in the bottom part of your phone, there'll be a little button in the tray that says Calc. When you hit Calc, it's going to open up and say, do you want to purchase or refinance? You're going to say purchase. You're going to say, do you want to use FHA or conventional? Most people click FHA. You can then put in your purchase price, your real estate taxes, your interest rate of 2.75%, and it'll calculate all of these components of your payment. Do it today. You're going to love the fact to be able to play around and determine what is my monthly payment if I buy a $200,000, a $225,000, a $250,000 home. So what does my housing payment consist of? When you download FCMexpress, here was that payment that we showed you previously, assuming a 3% interest rate. When you calculate your gross income, which is the denominator, you qualify on gross income. So gross income is your gross salary divided by 12, or if you work 40 hours a week, times your rate per hour, and then we multiply that by 52 weeks in a year divided by 12. So it's based on your gross. If you get bonuses, we're going to do a 2-year average. Not what you just got as a bonus, but what you got over the last 2 years. If you're commission paid, we're going to average your commissions over a 2-year period. If you get paid overtime, we're going to average your overtime over a 2-year period. If you're self-employed, that means self-employed doesn't mean that you own 100% of the company. You and I can own a partnership. We're buying real estate properties and we own 50-50. If you own more than 25% of an entity, that entity, you're self-employed for that entity. So anybody that owns more than 25% of something, we're going to look at what you put on your tax return, not a piece of paper that you typed up in Word, but what you show on your tax return for the last 2 years. We're looking at the net income of that operation. So let's say that you collected rents of $40,000, but if you spent $25,000 in advertising, in interest, in real estate taxes, and you only netted $15,000, we're only going to use the $15,000 as qualifying income. So it's the net after expenses that we use for the self-employed. We use the gross salary for those that are W-2'd. Another quickie, easy approach to help you understand how much of a loan you might qualify for, I call it the 4-time rule. I combine your gross income. If the husband makes 40, the wife makes 30, that's a total of 70,000. I multiply it by 4 and say roughly $280,000. It's a good walking around tool, but it's not how we as lenders really qualify you. But it helps you at least starting to narrow the breadbasket as to, should I be looking at $400,000 homes or should I not be? This is going to help you, put yourself in the price range where you should stay. Now, lenders, they're more precise. Remember, we talked about debt ratios that they use to qualify you. That housing ratio is how we qualify you. We use the monthly amount spent on housing, that principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, as a percent of your gross monthly income. Your total debt ratio is that monthly housing plus all other consumer debt, monthly payments on credit cards, student loans, auto loans, as a percent of the gross monthly income. And as we talked about before, keep it under 45% for your down payment assistance, 55% without down payment assistance. So let's see here as we start to wrap things up. Did we answer these common questions? How much down payment do I really need to buy a home? Well, 1% if you go with down payment assistance. How much savings do I need in the bank? Well, how about can you at least get me 1% in the bank so you have that down payment, the minimum that's needed? How good does my credit need to be? Minimally 580, but 640 if you want to take advantage of that, buying a home for as little as 1%. What is a fixed rate versus an adjustable rate? Well, in the last 2 years, I have not seen anybody take an adjustable rate, but adjustable rates mean that your interest rate can change after 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. However, everybody is taking a fixed rate these days. 2.75% using down payment assistance is a really low interest rate, and I would be counseling anybody who tried to go away from that, locking that in for 30 years. What does my housing payment consist of? We saw that in principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, as well as any type of private mortgage insurance, flood insurance, and if you download FCMexpress, you'll be able to calculate it yourself. What are closing costs? We talked about it being about $5,000 plus an additional 1% if you use the IDA funds. And again, we're going to give you a detailed breakdown of that. That's going to consist of a credit report. That's going to consist of underwriting fees. It's title charges. It's recording fees. All that's going to be detailed out to you when you get, it's called a loan estimate from us. What are escrows? We talked about that. We showed you as far as real estate taxes and homeowners insurance. You escrow every month with the lender. At the very start of it, you're going to get a seller credit for the real estate taxes. That means that you won't have to fund it at the closing, but every month your payment, there'll be 1/12 of your real estate taxes will be included to add to your escrow for real estate taxes, 1/12 of your homeowner's insurance, and that'll get added to your homeowner's insurance escrow. And how much loan do I qualify for? Got a round number rule, 4 times your gross, or you can actually do the debt to income ratios, and they cannot exceed 45% up to 55% of your gross monthly income. So your goal, your homework today, what should you do next? Get pre-approved for free. Use FCMexpress. When you open it up, it's going to say, would you like to start an application? And you should say, yes, I should have started this yesterday. Obtain a free credit report or credit rescore if necessary from your wonderful loan officer. Assemble the necessary documentation for a full app. Typically, it's just your income docs, 2 W-2s, 2 pay stubs, and 2 years of tax returns. If you forget that, in this PowerPoint, there's a checklist, but if you forget it, if you use FCMexpress, it will send you a notification telling you, hey, I need 2 W-2s. Hey, upload those pay stubs. You're going to get an automated underwriting approval. You'll get a pre-approval letter shared with your realtor. You now have a yes. Go find that home with the realtor. Review the action plan with your mortgage consultant and your realtor. Here's your checklist. I won't go through it in great detail other than the first 3. 2 years of tax returns, 2 W-2s, 2 pay stubs. That's what you need to get pre-approved for free. Take advantage of free. So what can I do to share this with my friends? Well, go to Glen Marino on Facebook. Share this post. You're going to see all sorts of posts like this. You want to buy a home for 1% of the purchase price? There is a link, I want to own, get more information.org. Click it. It'll take you to a landing page. The landing page says, congratulations, you're on your way toward home ownership. Find out if you qualify for up to $10,000 and buy a home for as little as 1%. Name, email, phone number, submit, and we're off to the races. we're going to make contact with you. We're going to share FCMexpress with you. We'll even take your application over the phone. I thank you for being here today. The contact information will be in the PowerPoint that I send out to you guys. Tony Marino for Centennial. There's his phone number. There is his email address. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?